Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This hearing of the U.S. Senate Caucus on International Narcotics Control will come to order. Last month, the U.S. government secured the extradition of Ji Dongjiang, a Chinese drug trafficker based in Mexico, who was designated as a consolidated priority organization target by the Department of Justice. The consolidated priority organization target list includes leaders of the most prolific drug trafficking and money laundering organizations that influence the supply of illegal drugs in the U.S. He also goes by the alias Brother Wang, another one who goes by the alias Brother Wang definitely merits inclusion on this list. Not only has he been accused of smuggling large quantities of cocaine and fentanyl from Mexico into the United States for distribution, but he also managed stash houses where cash was collected and deposited in U.S. bank accounts. At one point in 2020 and 2021, prosecutors estimated that around $20 million sat in 170 separate bank accounts connected to Brother Wang. Mexican Security Minister Omar Harfuch has described him as, quote, responsible for making connections between cartels for transporting fentanyl from China to Central America, South America, Europe, and the United States. Brother Wang is a perfect example of the serious threat that Chinese organized crime poses in the Western Hemisphere. Like the Mexican drug cartels, Chinese organized criminal groups are commodity agnostic. Brother Wang has not only smuggled fentanyl into the United States, but also laundered drug trafficking cash proceeds. Indeed, Chinese criminal organizations have become the go-to money launderers in the Mexican drug cartels. But they haven't stopped there. Chinese organized criminal groups have also brokered the sale of fentanyl precursors to the Mexican cartels, facilitated illegal immigration to the United States, used illegal immigrants to grow marijuana in the United States, and even used poached wildlife as currency for their illicit transactions. In his 2025 national security strategy, President Trump wrote, "We want to ensure that the Western Hemisphere remains reasonably stable and well-governed enough to prevent and discourage mass migration to the United States. We want a hemisphere whose governments cooperate with us against narco-terrorists, cartels, and other transnational criminal organizations. We want a hemisphere that remains free of hostile foreign incursion or ownership of key assets." Today's hearing supports that important goal. We'll chart out the multifaceted threat that Chinese criminal groups pose in the Western Hemisphere, how they traffic drugs, encourage illegal immigration, and destabilize the region. The president's strategy also states non-hemispheric competitors have made major inroads into our hemisphere, both to disadvantage economically in the present and in ways that may harm us strategically in the future. This hearing will also investigate how China's economic expansion in the Western Hemisphere is intertwined with Chinese criminal groups' illicit activities. Earlier this year, the Washington Post published an investigation of the links between World Hongman History and Cultural Association, in actuality a front group for the 14K Triad, one of the most powerful criminal syndicates in China and the Chinese Communist Party. According to the Post, China's strategy includes selectively exploiting ties to criminals that proclaim loyalty to the CCP, letting them thrive as long as their illicit activities remain offshore and do not threaten domestic stability. The Post quoted a former U.S. State Department official who said that the Chinese authorities increasingly know of and cooperate with Chinese organized crime overseas. The Post's investigation centered on Chinese criminal organization activities in Southeast Asia and Africa. Today, I hope to learn how Chinese authorities exploit the presence of Chinese criminal groups in our own hemisphere. China's trade with Latin America has grown significantly in the last 2 decades, from around $12 billion per year in 2000 to about $500 billion today, from 12 to 500 billion in just a short 25 years. Chinese government-linked corporations now control all or part of 40 ports in Latin America, including the mega container port of Chanquete in Peru. These trade flows between China and Latin America can easily hide fentanyl precursors and the illicit wildlife that the drug cartels sometimes pay Chinese criminal organizations with. I'm concerned about a report published this last year by the International Coalition Against Illicit Economies, which warned that the port of Chanquete, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is likely to become a preferred hub of illegal trade. As China expands its control over Latin American ports, it can become increasingly difficult for law enforcement to stop synthetic drug precursors from entering the Western Hemisphere before they're turned into fentanyl and methamphetamine and trafficked across our borders. Sometimes the Chinese government offers Latin American countries assistance in addressing the threat posed by Chinese criminal groups. For example, in the 2010s, the Chinese government assisted the Argentine government multiple times in dismantling Chinese criminal organizations. But when China provides law enforcement assistance to Latin American countries, it does so with its own interests in mind. According to a study published last year by the International Institute for Strategic Studies, China has gained intelligence opportunities by integrating Chinese technicians into foreign countries' security agencies. And we know that China has deployed surveillance technology in at least 12 countries across Latin America and the Caribbean through its, quote, Safe Cities initiative. Today's hearing provides us an opportunity to understand not only the direct threat that Chinese criminal groups pose to our citizens through trafficking poison across our borders, but also the long-term strategic consequences of their presence in Latin America and the Chinese government's response. We have some of the leading experts on Chinese organized crime in Latin America with us here today, and I'm looking forward to a productive discussion. I will say to my friend, Senator Whitehouse, I've already told our witnesses we have some votes scheduled right smack dab in the middle of our hearing, so we'll manage the best we can, but I'll turn the floor over to you.